Today, we will be continuing with our grammar review. So far, we've done subject-verb agreement and the details of that, and then sentence types with declarative, interrogative, exclamatory, and imperative. Today, we will talk about sentence structure. I don't know why this keeps resetting every time. So, sentence structure. And there are three, right? Sometimes given as four, but there are three main types. And they start from the very basic simple sentences and go up to the more complex ones. Now, before starting off, what are the basic requirements of a sentence? Can anyone tell any of you tell me? What do you need for a sentence? Can you hear me? Hello?
Sir, don't know.
Hmm. Okay.
Verb and subject, I guess.
Could you repeat that, please?
A verb, subject, and an object.
Okay. So, the basic requirements of a sentence are the subject and the verb, right? Not the object. Objects are the basic requirement. So let's talk about these, right? First of all, let's talk about the subject. What parts of speech can the subject be?
Noun or a pronoun.
A noun or a pronoun, right? So I hope you remember the parts of speech, right? You've got noun, pronoun, adverb, adjective. So those are four of them. Then you've got conjunction, preposition, interjection, and what's the eighth one? Huh. Noun, pronoun, adverb. All right, verb, obviously. Missed verb. Okay. So those are the eight parts of speech, and a subject can be a noun or a pronoun, right? The verb is obviously a verb, but a verb can be either, among other things, right? So regular, you've got regular and irregular verbs and all that, but those are not what I'm talking about at the moment. A verb can be either transitive or intransitive, right? So what do these two mean? Can any of you tell me what's the difference between a transitive and an intransitive verb? Anyone?
Like in transitive verb, they don't need an object.
The transitive verb does not need an object.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got it the other way around. So an intransitive verb right, does not require an object. Right, so in terms of the verb, the subject is the doer of the action. The verb is obviously the verb, that is the action. And the object is the receiver of the action. Right? And so intransitive verbs do not need an object. And so you can give a sentence such as right, and so the boy slept. I can actually put a full stop over here, and that would be a complete sentence. Subject, the is right, it's an article. So the boy slept. So you got the subject and the verb, and that's it. It doesn't need an object, right? All day is you giving more detail, right? So that's the modifier. But then you've got the intransitive verb. Sorry, the transitive verb. Right? Requires an object. So it requires a recipient for the action. And so an example for that is the boy rode. And you're going to ask, well, what? Right? Because if I just stop over there, it's not going to make complete sense. Right? And so it needs a recipient. Right? And so the bike will be the object. Rode is obviously the verb, and the boy is the subject. So whether a sentence has an object or not depends on the kind of verb you're using. Right? The basic requirements are subject and verb. A little trick to figure out whether the verb is transitive or intransitive is when you use the verb, you ask what or to or with whom. Right? If these questions fit, and just these two, I mean, you can ask a lot of questions. The boy rode why? Okay, now I can ask that question. Why was he riding? Why was he sleeping? How long did he sleep? Where did he sleep? Not those. Right? It's not like you can ask any question and that makes it a transitive verb. No. If you can, right, if the verb requires an answer to what or to whom, so I can, the boy slept and I ask what, that doesn't make sense. I ask with whom, right, and that also doesn't make sense. So that's not transitive. The boy rode, what did he ride? And so that does fit, the question fits, and so that's probably a transitive verb. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
And obviously when you are making your sentences, perhaps you have enough practice that it comes to you instinctively. But in other cases, students do tend to miss out the object when they're using a transitive verb, and obviously that causes a problem. So something for you to look out for. Now that you've got that cleared out, okay, the first type of sentence that we are going to talk about is the simple sentence. And we've basically already talked about it. Right, so a simple sentence has a subject, verb, right? And objects, I'm putting that in brackets, depending on the verb. It, and it gives complete meaning. Right, so giving complete meaning is important. And I'm going to add over here, right? It does not contain any conjunctions. So any sort of conjunctions are missing, right? If it has any sorts of conjunctions, it will no longer remain a simple sentence. So a simple sentence does not mean that it's a short sentence. Okay, so keep that in mind. And this is also where I will, right? So I can put in uh, right, the cat sat, and that's a complete sentence. Okay, and it gives you complete meaning. So it's a simple sentence. You've got the subject and verb. It doesn't require an object in this case, and it's giving you complete meaning. Now I can add a lot of, well, detail. I wouldn't say a lot, but I can add detail to this without using any conjunctions, and it will still remain a simple sentence because it satisfies the criteria. It would have a subject, it would have a verb, it will give complete meaning, and it will not have any conjunctions going with it, right? And this will also give you, right, a hint on sent. Now, obviously, perhaps what I'm saying is very basic, but it might help, right? So I have a sentence like this, and what kind of detail can I, right? The I can add adjectives. The old yellow cat sat by my bedroom window all night, meowing loudly. Now that is not a short sentence, right? It's a reasonable sentence, and it's still a simple sentence because, again, subject, verb, complete meaning, and there are no conjunctions, right? So then we will talk about conjunctions, we talk about compound sentences next, and then obviously we come to complex sentences and we come across subordinating conjunctions. It doesn't have any of those, right? It does have details. It has adjectives and modifiers and adverbs and, right. It's got two verbs, so the sitting and the meowing, right? Uh, so it's got other parts of speech. It's got other grammatical characteristics, but it's still a simple sentence. Any questions?
No.
No.
Next up, a compound sentence, right? And these guys are two or more simple sentences joined together by coordinating conjunctions. Okay, and so since you're joining simple sentences together, it goes without saying that the requirements are the subject, verb, and object if required, and giving complete meaning. Okay, so obviously these are supposed to give complete meaning as well. They're supposed to have the requirements of the simple sentence. Uh, right, and so what are the coordinating conjunctions? They can be remembered using the acronym PANBOY. Right, so there's 7 of them, and right, it's not like they're used in this particular order. They're just mentioned in this order because they make up the acronym PANBOY. You can remember them however you want, right? And so they are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So we're going to talk about each of these because it's not just knowing them. Each one of these gives meaning, it adds meaning to the sentence, right? So let's try each one of these. You're starting with for, and what for does is when you're joining two simple sentences, the second sentence gives reason for the first. An example for this, right? I slept for most of the weekend. For I had a very busy week. Now you can clearly separate the two simple sentences, right? You have this one over here. Obviously, that's the first simple sentence. And the thing about this is if I just say I slept for most of the weekend and I put a full stop over here, that's giving you complete meaning. That means it's a simple sentence. And if I just look at this part, I had a very busy week, and that's also giving me complete meaning. I can just say that separately. Okay? So I slept for most of the weekend, for I had a very busy week. And so this for is what I want to, right? That is the coordinating conjunction. It is giving reason. This is why I slept for most of the weekend. Another thing I want you to notice right ahead, right, is the comma. So when you are writing a compound sentence, you put a comma before the conjunction, right? That's a general rule. There are situations where the sentence is too short, or you, right, like skip some of the details, or right, depending on how you're making the how you're constructing the sentence, right? You may not need the comma, right? It's good if you put it in. It's better. So it is a general recommendation. The next up, the next one is and this, as we know, right, basically brings two meanings together, right? It simply joins two simple sentences. You could say it brings their meaning together, and so you could give anything over here, right? Bilal worked hard and scored well. Right? Now, another thing I want you to notice over here, right? So as you can see, I'm not using the comma over here. So, right, that thing, no comma. And secondly, the second sentence, so Bilal worked hard is the first sentence. But for the second sentence, where is the subject? This is the verb, right? And this is the adverb. Where's the subject for the second sentence? Can you tell me? Anyone has any idea where it went? Why I haven't written it down?
Can you repeat what you were saying?
I'm asking what the subject for the second sentence is. I've written the subject for the first sentence, Bilal worked hard, but there's nothing there for the second sentence. So what's the subject?
Uh, the subject is the same.
It is
Bilal is the subject in
Bilal is
this.
the subject, right? And so when you have the same subject for both, right? It does not need to be repeated. So you can skip it unless, for example, by repeating it, you want to perhaps give emphasis, you want to stress, or there's some other reason. For example, up here, I slept for most of the day. For if I skip I, it won't make sense. For had a very busy week. Who had a very, like, obviously I'm talking about myself. So in this case, I can't skip I. Right? So there's some situations where you can't skip it, but in others where you can, you don't need to repeat it, you don't repeat it, right? It will sound odd because you also need to keep in mind how language is commonly used, right? The common usage, what is uh, right in practice. And so, right, you could say, well, I can say Bilal worked hard and Bilal scored well. Yes, you could say that, but because that's not how it's normally done, it will seem odd. It just doesn't come out, come off as, very nice. Okay, then we have, go to a new page. The next up we have is nor, right? And this case, when you add this, it negates meaning in both sentences, right? And it is often used with neither. So as an example, uh, he neither or. So this is, right, a negative. So when it's negating, you need support with something else that is giving you negative meaning. You can either use a word that's clearly negative, so like not, right? And so you're coupling that with not, and so it's negating meaning, right? So finding the notebook and finding the pencil case, pencil box are both, right, something that did not happen. You could also write it in a way where you're not using a negative word, so to speak, but the meaning is coming of it. So I can rewrite this, for example, as he was unable to find his notebook. But in this case, I'm going to use or. So obviously the sentence changes. But if I put in nor, doesn't quite fit. So fanboys, then you've got but. right? And what this does is it shifts meaning or focus, I should say. From the first to the second sentence. So, an example, they didn't win, but learned a lot. Right, and so as you can see, we talk about not winning, but then we shift focus to, okay, fine, something else happened, right? It could also possibly be used for contrasting between two things by using but. Then we've got or. So we kind of already used it. And or gives options, right, between two, like the meanings of two sentences. And so over here, you could go to the park or stay home and watch a movie. Right, so you got options. Right, now just to highlight over here, when I used or, it's not giving me an option, right? It's telling me neither of these happen, right? But the way like the sentence is structured so that I'm not using nor, but that's basically the meaning that I'm giving. He didn't find his notebook, right? He didn't find his pencil book, but right. So over here, I'm not giving an option that, well, right? It's one of the two things I did not find. So that's not it. Okay. Then you've got yet. And this is similar to but, right? And it shows contrast. And I'm going to write something that you guys can very well relate to, although what I'm writing is a hypothetical situation. It rained all night, yet there's no water standing on the street. Right, so a contrast between what should have been and what happened. Right, raining all night might give you the impression that, right, there's going to be a lot of water everywhere, but there wasn't. And finally, you've got so. And this is the opposite of for, right? And over here, the first sentence gives reason for the second. right? She was running late, so, right, she packed her breakfast for later. And you can see right over here, I've repeated she because right the sentence, the mood or the flow of the sentence would right be a bit odd if I didn't. She was running late, so packed. I mean, it could work, but from my experience to my understanding, this sounds better than skipping, right? If you go into grammatical details and discussion of linguistics, right, English linguistics and all of that, right, you could say it works without it, but again, we're not going that deep, right? And right, so if you find a scenario or some website or blog or some source that says, oh, it can work without it, sure, go ahead as long as it's proper English, right? It's all good. Any questions?
Not yet.
Sir,
So you've got these 7 coordinating conjunctions, and right, though you've done simple and compound sentences, and then next up, are complex sentences. Right now, before going into complex sentences, there are 2 things that uh, I want to talk about. One is a clause. Does anyone know what a clause is?
incomplete sentence.
Hmm? Could you repeat that?
Incomplete.
A complete sentence, not quite.
Incomplete sentence.
Incomplete sentence, also not quite. Right? So a clause is a part of a sentence containing a subject and a verb. Right? And possibly an object. Again, depending on the kind of verb you have. Now, within a clause, right, you've got 2 types. So the first type is known as the main or independent clause. And so it has the characteristics of a clause because it's a subtype, it's right. So it's a part of a sentence containing a subject and a verb and object possibly. But the main and or independent, so right, both these terms are used for it. The main or independent clause gives complete meaning on its own. Okay. Whereas the other type is called the subordinate or dependent clause. And as you could guess, it does not give complete meaning on its own. Right? And so it basically needs the main clause. And we will come across both of these. Now, we've already come across the main and independent clause. The simple sentences are all main, right? They're all clauses and they're all main clauses, right? Because they're just complete sentences. They have the subject and verb and object, right? So all simple sentences are main clauses. And then you've got the compound sentences, which are two simple sentences. And so basically, right, all of these have two main clauses clumped together. So we haven't come across a subordinate or a dependent clause so far, right? I already showed you how you can easily like identify and separate those, and they will stand well on their own. The thing about the dependent clause, as we will see, is if you separate it from the sentence, it will not be giving complete meaning on its own. You cannot use it as a separate independent sentence, which, right, obviously kind of goes with the name. The other thing is a phrase. Right now, we won't come across the phrase, but when we talk about clauses, we talk about phrases. And so, right, a phrase, does anyone know what a phrase is?
It is a part of a sentence.
It is. Anything particular about it?
Yeah, it has a subject or a verb, or maybe it does not have any. I'm not sure about it though.
Okay. All right. So a phrase is a part of a sentence and right, it has either the subject or object or object or neither, right? And it does not give complete meaning. Right, so an example of a phrase from any of the of these that we've done so right, was running late. If I just pick up this part, right, this is a phrase, right? Or breakfast for later, or I take any part of these sentences which are not giving complete meaning, that are missing the basic components, either one or both, right? And right, gives reason. So I just take this part. Right? This is a phrase. Okay. So now that we have that, what is a complex sentence? So a complex sentence has a main clause and one or more subordinate clauses joined using or joined by subordinating conjunctions. Right? And unlike coordinating conjunctions where you had 7 of them and you had a nice acronym to remember them by, subordinate conjunctions are not the case, right? So there are many there are many, many subordinate conjunctions, and I I think I came across an acronym for them once, but I don't recall it at the moment and couldn't relocate it wherever it was that I read it. So, what I can give you are some of the common ones that have been categorized, they've been listed according to the meaning. So just like the coordinating conjunctions gave meaning, added meaning to the sentence, the subordinate conjunctions do the same. And so what I'm going to do for today is just give you a list. We don't have enough time to practice them, but so the subordinate conjunctions with with regards to their meaning, we'll start with the ones that give you a meaning that has to do with time. And these are as soon as, till, until, when, whenever, while, now that, before, after, by the time, and since. Then you've got conjunctions for manner. And by manner over here, they mean how something happened, the way something happened, right? Or how something is. And so obviously it's going to have how, and this is not the question how, as though, and it would be nice if you actually note these down. Then the ones that give reason. I'll just rewrite that. Okay. And so you've got because, it could be because of, since, and so notice we've got a since over here in time and a since over here in reason. And so obviously the usage will determine what meaning they're giving, right? They're not the same. As, so that, and in order to. Then is concession, and concession means that you are giving allowance for something to happen, right? You're giving space or the possibility of something happening. Though, although, even though. Then you've got condition, and this one starting off obviously with an if, only if, unless, provided that, assuming that, even if, in case that, lest, and once. Right, now this may seem like a lot, but by no means is this an exhaustive list, right? So these are just some of the main ones, the major ones, the commonly used ones that I've collected. And you've got place. As you can guess, it's going to have a where and a wherever. Almost done. There's comparison. And so you've got than, rather than, as much as, whereas, and whether. And finally, you've got purpose. So that, right, and so this is similar to reason in order that. Similar, but perhaps like, the subtle meaning, the nuance in its use can set it apart from reason. So I have a document in which I've, made sample sentences for each and every one of these. I'll share that with you the next time once we've gone over this. And once you've completed this, we are going to move on to talking about punctuation. So we do still have some talk about these left, right? The grammar review, but right, it's all hopefully going to be useful. Any questions?
No.
Okay, so that's all, and I'll see you guys next time then, inshallah.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz, sir.
Allah.